Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever looked at a massive, incredibly expensive business initiative, the ones with all the hype, and just watched it completely crash and burn? It's wild, right? Well, today we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to treat failed business initiatives like a forensic investigation. We'll decode the anatomy of corporate failure, and more importantly, uncover how to flip the script so you can actually achieve success.
All right, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to hit 5 key areas. First, the paradox of expertise. Then, the consultant's blind spots. After that, why good projects fail, followed by the project survival guide. And finally, we'll wrap up with the bird's eye view. Let's get right into it.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a question that literally baffles CEOs all over the world. Why do experts fail? I mean, we're talking about highly paid professionals, right? They're armed with the latest tools, massive budgets, fancy degrees, and yet they still fall short. They charge an absolute premium to supposedly make a business failure-proof, but, so often the patient still dies on the operating table. Why is that?
That brings us to Section 1, the paradox of expertise, having the tools, missing the mark.
Well, it often starts right here, with what the source material calls negative business planning. Basically, this is a huge foundational misunderstanding between a company, its customers, and the larger market. Think about it. You can have the absolute smartest people in the room, but if you launch the wrong product, at the wrong time, at the wrong price, and in the wrong market, oh man, you are setting yourself up for massive, immediate losses in revenue and resources. It's just a fundamental misalignment, and honestly, no amount of funding can fix that.
And this actually leads us right into a really fascinating analytical trap. On one side of the coin, you have teams loading up on the absolute latest analytical tools. They learn all the trendy vocabulary, they build these crazy next-generation models. But on the flip side, we see what actually matters, converting all that acquired information into genuine business intelligence. Because let's be real, learning the buzzwords is totally meaningless if you aren't actually moderating and translating that raw data into decisive action. It's like having a fancy sports car but not knowing how to drive it.
All right, moving on to Section 2, the consultant's blind spots, evaluating supervisory failures. Now, our source material identifies a staggering number of pitfalls here. Specifically, they point out 10 common reasons why supervisors and consultants just completely fail to deliver effective results. 10! I mean, that is a massive minefield of potential human error standing right between your strategy and your ultimate success.
To make this a bit easier to digest, we can actually synthesize those 10 pitfalls down into 4 overarching themes. First up is disconnect. This means not really understanding the client's actual history, or worse, pushing some lazy one-size-fits-all boilerplate solution. Second is poor communication. Think about ignoring the audience or just talking to the wrong players entirely. Third is a lack of value. This one often shows up as tunnel vision, or what the source brilliantly calls empty repackaging. Just regurgitating what the client already knows without adding any real tangible value. And finally, professional failures, which is basically just plain negligence and a lack of integrity. So the big takeaway here is that if a consultant relies on that empty repackaging and ignores their intuition about your specific business needs, it literally destroys the entire algorithm of solutions.
Which leads us to Section 3, why good projects fail, ground-level execution. Now, what's really interesting about the information here is how perfectly the disease maps right to the cure. For example, if a common project killer is ambiguous goals, while the fix is applying frameworks like SMART or clear goals, you have to make them measurable. It's the difference between saying, I want to lose weight and I want to lose 15 pounds in 4 months. Big difference, right? What about project invisibility? Fix it with a centralized digital repository so everyone on the team can actually see the status. Then there's scope creep. When a tiny client request suddenly balloons the project way out of control. The cure for that is strictly adhering to well-defined parameters from day one. And finally, unrealistic expectations. Look, you just have to align reality with your stakeholders on a regular basis. Seriously, do not let blind optimism sink your ship.
Let's pivot to Section 4, the project survival guide, actionable steps for success. So, one of the top reasons projects fail is actually insufficient resource planning. We always remember to plan the budget, right? But we completely forget the logistics. So before you even start, you absolutely must ask yourself these specific, actionable questions. Number 1, assess your human resources. Who exactly do you need, and are they already booked on other projects right now? Number 2, confirm the physical prerequisites. Do you actually have the office space, the computers, or the production locations ready to go? Number 3, check on your third-party vendors. What are their strict turnaround times and limitations? And number 4, identify knowledge gaps.
Does your team actually have the skills required, or do you need to bring in a trainer? Asking these questions right up front is going to keep you out of that hidden resource trap.
Now, alongside those physical resources, you're going to need a bulletproof communication plan. Establishing tools early and using centralized project management software is great, for sure. But the middle step there, that's the real key, because bridging communication gaps isn't just about talking more. It's about setting really explicit rules for information sharing, like what kind of information gets a formal email versus just a quick chat message. Setting these explicit rules ensures total visibility and keeps everyone aligned across the entire team right from day one.
And now we arrive at Section 5, the bird's eye view, the military antidote.
This analogy brilliantly illustrates the ultimate solution to business failure. Over on the left, we have the frontline grind. When you're super stressed by day-to-day operations, you inevitably develop tunnel vision. Even the most obvious things become blind spots simply because you're deep in the trenches fighting fires. Now contrast that with the command console on the right. Think about a military general. They don't run right into the front lines of the battle, right? They deliberately maintain a distance from the war. And this vital distance allows for calm, collected thinking. It allows them to access all this diverse political, operational, and socioeconomic intelligence that the soldiers on the ground simply cannot see.
So, a truly skilled management consultant, or even an effective internal project leader, needs to act exactly like that general. They bring this bird's eye view to the table. And what that means is the ability to step back from that operational stress, to devise strategy with clear objectives via team evaluation. By intentionally maintaining this elevated perspective, impartial professionals can see the whole battlefield. They're the ones protecting your business from those dark holes that just swallow up time and money. They coordinate an integrated strategy that a stressed-out frontline worker would just never have the bandwidth to see.
But even with the absolute best strategy and the clearest bird's eye view, there's an underlying foundation that can never, ever be ignored. When discussing why supervisors fail, the source highlights a lack of integrity as a fatal flaw, and it offers this absolute mic drop quote: "There is only one guardian of your dignity, you." I mean, wow. If you want to prevent failure, you have to realize that honesty, trust, and personal responsibility are completely non-negotiable. You cannot be deceitful, abusive, or reckless and ever expect your project to succeed in the long run. It's just not going to happen.
Wow. Okay. We've covered a tremendous amount of ground in this explainer today, from the paradox of expertise all the way down to the nitty-gritty of project management. The anatomy of failure is definitely complex, but the blueprint for success is actually pretty clear if you're willing to step back and look at it objectively. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative question as we wrap things up. As you look at your own projects, your own team, and your own initiatives right now, how will you elevate your perspective to achieve the bird's eye view? Think about it. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the data, and keep learning.